One. All right, I am Kriana Lumen with Torin Collective, and we are interviewing Kristofer Wolcott here today, who's a member of Torin Collective and one of the core group leaders and co-facilitators for Tantric Kabbalah. And yeah, so Kristofer, tell us a little about yourself and let us know what your experience has been that led you to be someone who feels that you can hold space for this kind of journey.
Yeah, it's been kind of a work in progress over the course of my lifetime. I think early on as a child, I was drawn to people and kind of at a young age was listening in on the grown-up conversations and then very quickly started realizing that people, friends and even adults oftentimes would come seek me out to share their stories and find a listening ear. So I think I was just kind of naturally inclined and drawn to space holding for people. And then my journey kind of unfolded in a number of different directions. I grew up out in the country and had a strong pull towards nature and the wilderness. And my undergrad was in adventure-based counseling, where I spent a lot of time out in nature. And the degree was focused on holding group space and debriefing and experiential education and leadership kind of skills, along with the outdoor component. And then I worked with children and families and for a number of years afterwards, and then decided that I wanted to move on and get my counseling degree here locally from George Fox, and focused in marriage and family, and worked with doing play therapy for a number of years, and worked with families and children mostly in that experience. And then I maybe about 5 years ago, I started my own private practice, and about that same time was kind of the beginnings of my journey into, I've always been a seeker, and I've always been looking to understand the world around me and how it works. And about that time that I started my own private practice, I started exploring the dance community here locally, and just other ways of other perspectives and ways of looking at the world. And Tantra Kabbalah is one of the ones that came into my awareness. And pretty shortly there, I think I did back when you were doing a journey, I think it was meeting once a week. I only made it about halfway through.
Yeah.
And
very beginning.
Yeah. They were like 3-hour classes, and now they're full day. Once a month, sitting in the energy a little longer. Yeah. So that was kind of the beginning, and how it kind of came to the specific combination of working with energies and making sense of the world around us. And then I think I did the first round when we did the 9-month journey. Oh, it might have been, was it 7 months then?
No, it was 9 months.
9 months. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're bringing a lot of space holding experience, and it sounds like some of the realms that you've worked in that regard are pretty intense experiences where you have been a guide and a leader. That is a really potent life experience to be bringing to this, because people, it can be not so deep of an experience, but most people who go through Tantric Kabbalah choose to go really deep with it. And a lot of intense stuff can come up, and it's really wonderful to have someone like you on board that knows how to handle those kinds of energies.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to be able to, I think what I've learned from my experience, and especially some of the more intense ones, I worked in locked residential and I worked with juvenile sex offenders, and I've done some wilderness therapy. And I think that one of the biggest pieces that I've drawn from that is being able to just be with people and sit with whatever's coming up a little longer, and that companionship, I think, or I think that that's the space holding, to create a container for someone to be able to experience something that's difficult just a little longer, and then the next time just a little longer.
Yeah, allowing for the natural unfolding and for people to come to the solution within themselves rather than forcing them into something that they're not quite ready for, perhaps.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
or
wisdom in.
or taking on another indoctrination, or another, these are the next 10 steps I need to take to fix this,
Right,
to be able
right.
to let it kind of bubble up and actually resolve, and watch
Yeah,
the difficult things that might come up, and etc.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought I saw, have you done any work with people around addiction?
I don't usually work too much with addiction. I don't tend to enjoy when people are deeply in addiction, when we have to focus specifically on getting off of a substance, or a behavior. What I what I but I will work with people if I can, like, if it's not so bad that I can go down to the root issue and deal with it that way.
Hmm. Right,
Uh,
right.
yeah. Otherwise, I tend to refer people to more intense addiction recovery
Well, when
services.
there's a lot of, I guess what people would consider like more minor type addictions that a lot of people have, like to kitten videos or, and there it's more like things that folks are using to dissociate
Yeah.
or to like go into like or like check out basically. Um,
Hmm.
not I'm not referring so much to hardcore addiction
Yeah.
as the art of redirecting, like, hey, let's reinforce a different pattern and a different behavior here so that you can look at this stuff that is your shadow that may be difficult, that you might have been running from your entire life, and instead going to like chocolate or speed racing or whatever it
Social
might be.
media.
Yeah, social media, yes, and to really address those deeper core issues. So yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add about the space holding experience that you have, or what you're bringing to the table as a core group facilitator?
Um, I think I think that mostly kind of touched on kind of how that trajectory has evolved, and I think what's evolving currently. I'm working with Aphrodite Temple and Torin Collective, and then some other personal. There's some men's group work that's bubbling up, and I think that there's some other ways that that's taking on more of a leadership role, and a better understanding of what I'm doing. I do anchoring for people. I've gone into courtrooms and for
Mm,
people that are going through a trial, and help to anchor them, and for someone who maybe that doesn't really know what anchoring is, that's it's a number of things. Part of it is just being the person that someone can look to and maybe get eye contact with. Um,
to
Maybe
come back
it's
to
just
the center.
knowing that I'm there.
Mhm,
And that's kind of like the interpersonal component. And then
mhm,
I've also been trained and do work, working with the energies that are around, and can clear the space, and maybe kind of clear some of the energies that are bubbling up in people, and not so much of like removing and doing exorcisms and that kind of stuff. It's more of this gentle, things are okay. And what
yeah.
I've watched is arguments or tensions build and then them just naturally peacefully dissipate
Yeah.
through a number of the different pieces that I or tools in my toolbox to do that.
Yeah.
And then another component that I've been noticing developing with Tantra Kabbalah while I'm sitting there is being able to tune into where how much an individual is grounded or not grounded and how the group is grounded,
Mm.
and create my own you know being really grounded myself, and then being able
Okay.
to help anchor someone down into their grounding so that they can stay grounded while they're doing the upper work
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
and that's been really interesting to watch as that's becoming more and more clear for me, and um, developing there, and I'm kind of curious to watch that continue to unfold. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It's been very wonderful to have you during this past 9-month journey that we're just finishing up now, um, holding that space. And it's been um, wonderful to feel that presence that you bring in just, you're not even really saying anything. You're just holding that grounded energy, and it's felt definitely by us as facilitators, and I think by the group as well. Um,
Yeah, I've had a number of students specifically thank me for that, even though we haven't really talked about it a whole lot.
yeah, yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
like this mysterious guy who has great energy sitting there doing something, but not really knowing exactly what that is.
Right, right.
Yeah, and you brought up a really interesting point too about when there's kind of like anxious energies building up, or um, argumentative energies, or people like feeling heated, just holding the space that you hold can tend to dissipate that. And that's really wonderful. And that's something that we're going to be talking a lot about in Tantric Kabbalah, is how
Right.
our own energy affects what's happening in the room, and learning how to master that. And you're bringing that mastery already, and modeling it for people, which is fantastic, that you're doing that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. How many times have you been through Tantric Kabbalah now?
Boy, I was thinking about this on this last journey and trying to actually accurately figure that out. There was the first time where I only made it to Hode halfway through.
Hmm.
And then I think I've done 4 more.
Yeah, I think this will be your fifth one coming up, is what I was thinking also.
And I think I missed maybe 2 of the ones that you've done. So you're kind of like in number 7, counting that first one, right?
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
that's right. Yep, that's right. Yeah, and so tell us a little bit about your experience going through the journey, and some of the things that have come up for you that you've transmuted, if you don't mind getting a little
Yeah.
personal.
So the first one, I very distinctly remember getting stuck at Hode. And
Mhm.
then I remember we had a conversation about that, and then I kind of backed out. And then the next year, or maybe 6 months or 9 months or whatever it was, I remembered like really working hard on that foundational piece in
Mhm.
Hode, and NetSoc, kind of the two together, balancing the where in NetSoc the art and um, feeling and sensations, and I was trying to get into my body at that time,
Mm.
um, while at the same time getting some of the structures in place from Hode, and to get other parts of my life in more alignment, especially as I was coming out of the 9 to 5 and trying to create that structure for myself.
Mhm.
Um, so that's one example. Man, I don't. Looking back, I'm not sure if I remember exactly what some of those were. I remember working on my some marketing and some businessy kind of stuff one time, and at the end,
Yeah.
had a business card. I think was my presentation.
Yeah, that's a really great thing that people do through the journey, using it to create the work that you feel called to do, that is your purpose, rather than just doing whatever work you're maybe trained at, or your parents wanted you to do, or whatever.
Yeah. Another time, I think there was a lot of relational stuff that I was just trying to get clear on, and that one's a little bit more murky as far as like what transpired. I feel like I gained through the process a lot of interpersonal skills, and I came to the table with a lot of knowledge from the counseling world and my own education and learning. But I feel like this worked for me, and one of the things I really appreciated about all of the journeys that I've been on, there's a real strong focus on the experiential and being able to sit in those energies and to experience and feel. And that was something that education and my path thus far hadn't been. And so I
Yeah.
felt like really did these number of times I've been through have really helped me let go. You know, I feel like in many ways the church system I grew up in, and the college systems and the educational systems, and my master's especially, kind of lopped me off at the head and I went on this big head trip into my thoughts and analyzing and theorizing, and I feel like I'm in a place 5 journeys later where I'm more balanced, where I can still do that, but I get to choose to do that, and it's not my go-to so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking about you on that first journey and you now, there's like an integration that's happened with you have this tool belt, so to speak, and you're a lot like more softer and laid back, and
Yeah.
like, oh, here I can offer this tool right now. Um, yeah, that's a good observation about yourself. You also brought up relationships, and it's not uncommon. You experienced this, I witnessed it, for people to come in to Tantric Kabbalah in a relationship that isn't serving them or the other person, and to go through this process of really like coming to clarity around that and being able to step away gracefully. And then also people find the love that they really want to be in through this process as well.
Yeah, through that clarity of understanding yourself a little better, and
What
maybe
you really want and
yeah.
what's really not working. Yeah. So if you were to describe Tantric Kabbalah to someone who had no idea about any of this stuff and maybe didn't even understand some of the words that we're using, what would you, how would you explain the journey to them?
um I think one of the first things I would say to explain or to shed some light on it would draw from my personal experience that the both Tantra and Kabbalah provide complementary and different perspectives on the world around us. And in many ways, I see them as a kind of a map, or they're not so much you need to live your life this way. It's just more like, this is how life works. And it gives a place to kind of structure and put things together. And it's not a end all be all, but it is a map and a perspective to better understand why we do the things that we do and what works around us in our human body, and psyche and emotional and spiritual worlds, and also outside of us and how we interact with other beings and the world around us and the universe in general. And then maybe I would kind of go into more of the details, and that might depend on where someone's familiar with. One of the things I often describe when I'm having this conversation with people is talking about the specifics of the Tantra that the lineage that we come from, being the red Tantra, and a little bit more feminine, playful, and spontaneous version of that, and kind of dispelling the American myth that it's all about sex.
Yeah, yeah,
But,
yeah. I've definitely had people say, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm not ready to have an orgy." And like,
right.
Good, me neither. That's totally not gonna happen.
Yeah. Um, and then sometimes I talk about Kabbalah and that it's been around for thousands of years, and talk about King Solomon and kind of the origins there, and then kind of describe it as it's the mystical leg of Judaism that's often missing in religion and in Judaism, although you can still find it in some of the Jewish world. And this one particularly being not tied to Judaism, but this lineage, and separating out that this isn't tied to any religion. Um, it's more like the universal church. It's more open to everything, uh,
Yeah.
and again, more of that perspective. And then pieces about one of the things about both of those systems is that the chakra system in our bot is found in our bodies, and many people can connect with that one a little bit because it's available, more widely available. And that Kabbalah, the Sephira, is similar. There's in similar places in the body, and that what we experience in our body is a reflection of what we can experience in the world around us, and in
Mm,
many other places. And so it's this kind of fractaling understanding and all these different associations. It creates a map that gets really easy to understand almost anything that you come in contact with,
yeah.
and be able to place it somewhere,
Yeah.
make those connections. It's very
Yeah.
relational.
It is. I really love that about Universal Kabbalah, that it is, they say there was no handbook written for how to be human. That's absolutely not true. Um, this system, I believe, really teaches us about being human and the different aspects of ourselves and how they relate together and what needs to be in balance for us to be in balance. And also,
Right.
as you said, anyone from any tradition can uh, benefit from these tools because it's universal. It's not specific to any particular religious practice. And honestly, I'm really curious if we've never had an atheist be attracted to this, but I'm curious to know if an atheist could actually go through this, because we're not teaching that God is this like big guy in the sky, that God is life and everywhere in everything. And I wonder if atheism is more about not believing in the big guy and feeling just more connected to being alive. But
Yeah. I don't
it's a
know.
curiosity.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
another rabbit hole we could go down. There are many.
well, and it seems like a lot of what science is coming out with as proofs and ideas about the universe have a lot to do with they match up and seem to continue
Yeah.
to confirm what is taught in this system about energies and connections and the nature of the unseen world.
Yeah, I've been noticing that a lot lately. A lot of scientific studies proving what the medicine people, wisdom keepers, and shamanic people have known for thousands of years.
Right.
Like, like that everything is made of vibration and that our emotions affect each other and things like that. Cool. Um, so, as far as being a core group facilitator, can you share a little bit about what you envision that being like for you, and what that is to you?
Yeah, I'm really excited that we're adding this component. We've had study groups almost every time along the way as an additional way to engage the material, maybe more academically or playfully, or a number of different ways that we've done that. Um, and I'm excited that we're breaking that up into smaller groups this time. So they might be, I envision them as a little bit more intimate. Um, there's a variety between Maka, myself, and Arya in our skill set and personalities. And I think that it'll draw, especially since we're setting it up in a way that the groups will form around where there's a commonality, and a draw to the group leader. And I think that I'm excited for that process, because then I think it's going to naturally kind of unfold in a way that will add to the monthly work, but then also have this more personal component and accountability, which we've also had accountability partners. But I think that this is a really natural way for that to form, and for people to be able to engage the material in the way that they best learn.
Yeah.
Hope. And so my hope in envisioning that, there's a list up on is it on Torrent Collective
The
or on the group,
the list for what?
of what we're offering? Is that on the event page?
Yes,
Yeah.
along with your picture and your bio and what you're offering, there's a list there. Yes.
So there's a list of kind of the things that we're each drawing upon for these groups. And I have a background in counseling. I have a background in herbalism and alchemy. I have a background in trying to think some of the other things that were on there. Woodworking.
Yeah.
I'm recently connected with a potter. And so I envision that potentially there's some hands-on things that we might do in my group, and as well as being able to dive into the interpersonal and the psychology a little bit, and maybe some plants, and maybe we'll make some tinctures, or I envision maybe some making and also some partaking in herbal medicines if people are desiring to go down that route. And I'm looking forward to getting the group together and seeing what people are hoping and wanting for, and then creating the curriculum from there to match the Sephora as we go through the tree.
Yeah, perfect. Just allowing it to organically form and for the need to arise from the group that forms. That's perfect.
Yeah, with some
That's how we like.
flexibility of like what's going to come up. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
would hope that I can make that flexibility to match where people are at along the journey.
Yeah. That's one of the things about Touring Collective in general. That's kind of how we roll.
Yeah.
So it's perfect. Also, for listeners to know, one of the ways that this journey applies to everyday life is that each of the spheres that we go into has a host of correspondences that relate to everyday life. So, for example, we begin in the sphere of Earth at the root, and there are all kinds of things that are associated with the root energies, such as angels and stones and plants. So you had mentioned herbology and alchemy, and if people wanted to and were feeling called to it, you could make some kind of tincture or spagyric, or work with a plant and meditate with a plant in a specific way that is associated with each of the spheres that would
Right.
help with the healing and integration of whatever comes up during that piece of the journey.
Right.
That's a really beautiful offering.
As well as talking about the things that exist in that sphere, and that
Yeah.
one specifically being like money and security and foundational kind of things.
Ancestry and food and our bones, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Was there anything else that you'd like to share as that you didn't get to mention?
I don't think so. I mean, there's like, I could probably talk for days. Um, and I don't
And
have
there's
any,
plenty of time for that.
yeah. I also don't want to give it all away either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that I haven't really seen anyone enter this journey that hasn't grown,
Yeah.
and transmuted something in their life and had some hard stuff come up. And it's amazing to me to watch, going through the journey, how closely the things that come up for people match the sphere that they're in.
Yes.
Even if they're not like actively focused on those areas of life. I mean, it's not uncommon for someone in that first sphere to change where they live or change jobs, or
Yeah.
it's just really interesting how those transitions take place in the spheres where I think things are being shaken up by being there. And I think also um, it's partly because there's enough support and safety there.
Yeah, the community that develops is really wonderful. The closeness that everyone comes into from going through such intimate work together. Part of what's so beautiful about the journey is being held by an amazing circle of people that are all doing the same work together. Um, yeah, and
Yeah, I think I would piggyback off of that and say, like, in some ways I feel like this journey is oftentimes in this group, is a group process and almost like a support group as
yeah,
well as a learning educational group.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I will say too that I've seen, it seems like the journey shows up in whatever way is best for the person. So for some people, it's really intense and totally kicks their ass because that's what their soul is calling for. And for other people, it can be really gentle. And yes, stuff is coming up. And yes, there's this process and tools that
Right.
are given to transmute those things. But it's not like this ass kicking like other people.
Yeah,
Some
totally.
people get. And it's just, whatever you need is what shows up there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for doing this with us. I really
Yeah.
am excited about having you along again, and to see what comes through on this first journey of having this co-facilitation in this new way that we've never done before. And I think it's
Yeah.
going to be really amazing.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, right on. All right. Well, we will see you initiation weekend.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night, brother.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah.